Hello, Andy and Shavonne. How are y'all?
Hello, Dustin. Are you Doc?
I'm Doc. Yep,
Oh wait,
Docs.
do you call him Dustin? Just so I can get this straight, you call him
Oh
Dustin when
yeah.
you see him?
Yes.
I've never met anybody that calls him Dustin. Growing up, he is doxed. He is doxed to everybody I know. That's the
This
first
is
time.
news to me.
Yeah, if you could help me
Yeah.
spread that in Colorado, that would be fantastic.
Yeah, that background on that nickname is interesting.
Which one? Oh yeah,
Yeah.
so I don't know where that came from. I guess just last name, I guess shortened. But yeah, he's
Uh-huh.
been doxed since fourth grade for me. So
Okay.
yeah, so
Yep. No, Docs was junior high because we had what was his name? Our football coach. He couldn't say my last name.
that was Coach Adams.
Yeah, Coach Adams.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay, that makes sense.
And that's
So he
where
So.
it
just
came
started calling me
from. The
Docs.
coach couldn't say your last name, Doscosil.
Yeah. Yeah, or he
It's a
didn't
tough
want
one.
to.
He didn't want to. He was more like it. So,
Oh.
real quick, Siobhan, this is my first time meeting you. I tried to kind of study up on you a little bit, but from what I can tell, you're the editor of a magazine. Is that right?
The publisher
Publisher. Okay.
and the owner. Yeah, the founder.
Can you tell me just a little bit about that magazine?
Sure. This is our 25th year, so that's pretty exciting. It started in 2000, late 2000 as a yellow flyer. My background story is kind of fun. Someday when I am famous, I'll write my book. But I've been in media since I was 21, and I grew up on the sales side, but I grew up in independent journalism. So I drank the Kool-Aid that journalism matters. And so I always worked for the independent alternative weeklies. And then I was at the paper in Boulder for 5 years. I'm got a creative background. I help my clients with marketing and design well above and beyond what they normally would get for service. And I hit six figures at my job, and the owner is selling $300 ads on full commission and no salary. And the owner decided I made too much money and offered to cut my pay 35%. So I left. I live in Erie, and I don't know how much you know about Boulder County's growth. I mean, Colorado's growth as a whole is huge. But in 1990, Boulder County was about 150,000 people, and today we're almost 400,000. So the town I live in was dirt roads and 500 houses and 1,200 people in 1992 when I moved here. I don't think we got the streets paved until 2000. It used to be long distance across the highway to Broomfield. And this growth was coming, and a bunch of my clients called me and said, "Where did you go? What happened?" And I said, "This is what happened." And I said, "I'm thinking of starting something at those new houses in Erie. Would you buy an ad?" And they were like, "Yeah." So 2 weeks go by. I have no business plan. I'm like trying to figure out my job, career move. And they call me up and they go, "We're ready to buy an ad." So I had no business plan and no prototype. And the first one was printed on yellow paper. I told you I wasn't going to get up again, but I'm lying. And the first one was printed on yellow paper, and it was called the Gold Mine. And it was a flyer that I hand walked to every house in Erie by foot. And we were the East County's cultural voice.
I
And
love
people
it.
said, "Do you guys have that out there?" And I'm like, "Shut up." So it started small, and they asked me to do a second one, and I did a second one, and it got bigger, and then I did a third one, and it got bigger, and so we became the Yellow Scene. Then we went to a Reader's Digest format. Then we went to Reader's Digest Glossy, and then we went to the big size Glossy, I think in 2004 or five. And we've been independent since. We're, I think, one of two locally owned publications left in Boulder County. Everything else is either a hedge fund or, an outside guy who's got 20 tourist magazines that just write advertorials. We are very proud of the fact we've never published a single sponsored content. I'm also very sad that I have to explain that reality. Media literacy is a new subject that we all have to learn the term of. Um, Everyone is taking sponsored content because they want to survive, and I won't accept it. My readers trust us, and the reason people read us is because of the content. One of the things I tell people, content is king, right? Nobody goes home on Friday night and goes, "Let's watch infomercials instead of Netflix." So it's both the devotion to journalism at its truest form and um, wanting to make sure I keep an engaged audience that likes what we're publishing. So this is our 25th year, It's been a wild journey. There has been some really brutally hard times for independent media. Honestly, we're kind of a smarter capitalist probably would have quit a few years ago.
Nice. Well, and real quick, I read a little bit about you. I saw that you got your start in this in Santa Cruz, California, which I just have to say real quick. I got to spend 3 great summers in Santa Cruz, California. When I was in high school, my dad moved to San Jose, and to lure me out there, he would give me a rented Camaro every summer and his credit card and be like, "Go have fun." So I would either go north to the bay and go to, Fisherman's
Hmm.
Wharf, or
Hmm.
a lot of times it was a straight shot. I think it was Highway 17 from San
Hmm.
Jose,
San
go by,
Jose. Mhm.
what was the name? Los Gatos was a little
Yeah.
town halfway there. And I would go down and hang out at that boardwalk on Santa Cruz quite frequently. So I miss that place. I doubt I'll ever get back there, but I'm jealous that you got to spend time there also.
Well, I
Um,
lived a very adventurous life in the 80s. It was the 80s. It was 19 California. It was the 80s. There was the Grateful Dead. So I
nice.
had a lot of adventures in Santa Cruz.
So, and then to go back to your magazine real quick, the whole not doing sponsored content, fantastic. I give you big props for that. It seems like there's not much independent media left. I mean, all the local TV stations are getting bought up by like Sinclair is the big one you always hear about. But local news is now owned by Sinclair. Um, Sponsored content's everywhere. I feel like your magazine and what I find on YouTube is about
Yep.
the only place I can go, which me and Docs talk about it all the time, but our main sources of news are, Kyle Kalinske or Breaking Points or,
Me too. Me too.
okay, Majority Report. So
Yep.
that's kind of I go there and it's like
On.
that's all I can really trust. I don't I see mainstream news and I get worried. I get worried that what I'm getting fed is propaganda and it starts to frighten me a little bit. So that's where I've retreated to YouTube news recently. So glad to hear your magazine's kind of holding those same values. I hope you guys are able to keep doing that.
I'll quit before I change that value.
I appreciate that.
I'm gonna go work in politics, I guess, after that.
Heck yeah.
I'm gonna go sell out big. We're doing an article on streamers next month and the rise of independent media and journalism. In the 1990s, most 90% of music was being produced on record labels. And then in the 90s, bands like Modest Mouse and other groups started saying, screw this, we're going to make our own label. And today 50% of record of music is being produced independently. So the problem for journalism is, in the 80s under Ronald Reagan, we lost the Fairness Doctrine and other regulations that kept media independent. For example, there used to be a regulation that you couldn't own a major newspaper or television station in the same market. And Rupert Murdoch didn't like that. And so we dismantled that. And so what we had was this gobbling up of all the newspapers by hedge funds, and their only mission is to gut it and then close it up after they, steal all the money. So, it's going to be curious to see how, because you watch the same people I watch, and I trust them and I think they're good. But there's also the manosphere and the whole right wing section of it with I can't think of his name. He's got the Daily Beast. Is that what it is?
I like the Daily Beast. I hope that
No,
you're
the
not
other
gonna.
one, the Daily
Okay.
Wire. The Daily
Oh,
Wire.
Tucker Carlson's old
Ben
player. Or no, that's
Shapiro.
Ben
Yeah.
Shapiro.
Ben
Yeah.
Shapiro,
Yeah.
What was
yeah.
Tucker Carlson was the Daily Caller, I believe. Ben
Okay.
Shapiro's the Daily Wire. Yeah.
So the one challenge we're facing with online news is, and this comes back to media literacy, and we have this with mainstream news. Like none of them were reporting Gaza accurately, and as soon as Trump was elected, they're kissing the ring and normalizing it. I think I put a post up, let the normalization begin.
Yep.
Here it
Well,
is,
I
and
I think
they're
everything.
bought up. That's why they're owned by the same conglomerates. I mean, Jeff Bezos, we just published an article today about the editor quitting Washington Post, and basically the Washington Post is now just a big right wing newsletter.
Sounds like he gave the editor an ultimatum, and he said, "Hey, this is the way we're going to cover the opinion section. And unless you're an enthusiastic yes, then you should leave." And that guy left. And that's what scares me is that what we had left of, I don't even want to say independent mainstream media because I don't know how independent they were to begin with, but most of them are bending to Trump's will right now, and it's just like, okay, I can write off a couple more mainstream channels that I thought I could listen to or read, and now I'm stuck with 4 or 5 shows on YouTube that
Yep.
I pray to God they don't do something to ruin my trust at this point because once they're gone, I don't know what I'm going to do for news. That's kind of where I'm at.
Yeah, it's media literacy is an important topic, and most of us don't know about it. 90% of all we see or hear in media, and that's news, that's music, it used to be music, that's changing, but books that public, it's controlled by 6 major conglomerates. And this has been part of the strategy. I mean, I tell people Project 2025 is not new. It really started in the 60s, and the right wing knew that they would never win another election through popular vote. And so it was called different things in the past, but the plan has been in place a long, long time. And taking down, dismantling media, dismantling public education. I mean, in the 80s, late 80s, we got talk radio. And the idea was to take back the airwaves. So it used to be the liberal media, which was just a term that Ronald Reagan used to label anything that disagreed with him. Um, but so much of it's controlled by these same billionaires that are gutting the treasury.
Yeah, and I have to say the Republicans are good at it. Like I'll give them credit because they've dominated that lane. When I was a child, I remember during the summers I'd go with my mom on sales calls, and she'd be listening to Rush Limbaugh all afternoon. So as a child, I was hearing, ladies and gentlemen, the radical liberal Democrats are trying to destroy America, like all that stuff. And you hear it over and over, and it's one of those where it just, oh, that makes sense. I've heard it 3 times in the last hour, so I guess it's true. And right now, with what they've done with, kind of taking over the podcast world, the bro podcast world, I guess,
Yep.
like I hate
Manosphere.
it, but at the same time, you kind of have to give them credit. They're doing an excellent job at it. They really are. It,
Well, they have lots of billionaires. I mean, the Daily Wire is not funded through, they're funded by billionaires.
oh yeah,
Funded by billionaires, whereas I'm funded by my community.
Yeah.
That's the struggle. Like, I'm not going to get any billionaires don't fund journalism. I have a sign that we put up when we table at festivals. Billionaires don't fund journalism. They fund Tucker Carlson.
Mm.
now let me ask: has there ever been the urge or the opportunity to sell out in a way that's made you consider it at all, or are you hardcore, not going to sell out your values for
I will
money or
quit.
anything else?
I will quit.
Okay, perfect. Love to hear that. I'm not
Has
gonna lie.
anybody come to you with an offer?
Huh? If somebody
Has
gives
anybody
me
ever
an
come to
offer
you
with
with
the
an offer?
magazine,
Uh,
you know, I would like personally to become, like employee owned or something like that, so that it stays a trust of the community. Journalism is a public good, and they keep telling us this at the press associations and whatnot. So I would love to be able to make this a community owned or employee owned or something other than a big corporation. I don't know that a big corporation would come to me. The last 5 years were not fun.
And
They
what
were
what made the last 5 years harder?
Well, there's a couple of factors that made the last few years harder, but I went into the pandemic not in debt. I had borrowed no money the first decade I built Yellow Scene. I waited tables the first 2 years at night, bartended. Took my kid around with me at sales calls. He sat in the corner on his Game Boy or whatever and his comic books or whatever, and I sold ads while my kid was with me. But I built up and had a lot of success, and then I started a second magazine in 2011. And this was really happening at a time when none of us really saw the changes coming. And digital hurt us. I mean, for a long time, I still print. I don't just do digital. I still print. And I print for a reason. It's substantial. Everybody gets excited about seeing their picture in the magazine. They don't get as excited about it on the web. It's cool, but it's not as cool. And there's another element. We retain 7 times more information if we read something on paper than digital.
Really?
It's tangible, it's high touch versus high tech. People, what is it? 86% of books sold are in print. and people under 40 are reading twice as many books as people over 40. So, book sales have dropped, I think, 5 points. They've gone down, but it's not as much as people think. So I still print. There's a lot of value I have in it, and I believe in it. And it's very, very expensive. But I think it's better for the businesses. When people want to buy a digital ad from me, I'm like, 87% of people have banner blindness. Like
Oh
I've
yeah.
been telling people for the last decade, I think digital ads are ripping you off. I don't think they're effective. And you're an idiot. So we've got to, if people are going to make online marketing work, there's got to be a different form, because what we're getting now is just making everybody numb and not
Yeah.
paying attention.
I
So,
hope that I hope print continues to survive though, because I'm one of those people where when I read a book, like I like to go buy the paperback version of the book. And my wife has e-readers and she's got old ones and she's offered, here, use my old one and you can just download it. I don't know why I'm not a fan of that. Like if I'm gonna read a magazine or a book, I want to be holding it in my hands and flipping through the pages. So
well,
I hope
there's a study that tells you why you retain 7 times more information from paper than digital.
makes sense.
It's real. So print will never die. Journalism will never die. Ida B. Wells taught us that. But and Ida B. Wells was during the Jim Crow era. She was a black woman who was publishing her newsletter about the lynchings and the hangings and all the injustices. And in spite of threats to burn her house down or kill her, she kept publishing. She just moved a lot. So, she didn't have security. But I think the day of getting rich in independent media, I don't know if that's coming back. But I've stuck through the hardest times. And when I was told print was dead for a decade, and I'm like, no, it's not. People still pick us up. They're all gone. So where do they go? They all got thrown away. Um, so sorry, I lost my train. We were talking about the print and still printing and the journalism. We were talking about selling. I lost my train. I'm
That's
sorry.
all right. I'm going to redirect you real
100%.
quick. All
Okay.
right. So politics. I snooped through your Facebook. I became a Facebook stalker and kind of I just wanted to see what your vibe was. Seems like you got some views on stuff. But I noticed in the magazine there wasn't any. Here's what Donald Trump did today. Um,
Oh, there is.
Okay, what I saw, the first couple articles I read, they were great articles, by the way. I learned a little bit about the immigrant wave in
Mhm.
Colorado. Um, when dealing with being the publisher of a magazine, having your views, my big thing recently is Trump's doing the thing where he floods the zone. Yeah, all day there's 8 different stories a day, and if you write an article today that you want to publish tomorrow, by the time tomorrow happens, 8 more things have already happened. Is there any kind of strategy that you've thought of how do you want to focus on, 1 out of 10 things is going to be the real important thing and focus on that? How are you kind of approaching that?
Well, we're local and we're hyper local. And so for my own personal mental health, I have reduced my headline screening to about 15 minutes in the morning and 15 minutes in the evening. And then watch a couple of my streamers. I'm not even watching them every day anymore. I just need to take this one step at a time. But I wrote an article I was really proud of. Ethics are alive and well in America, 25 small businesses that are 25 years or older. I also just wrote one, decorporatize your groceries, because we're having the King Super strike. And I found over 100 ways in our local community to shop locally. So as far as the news of Trump goes, that's not really our role.
Okay.
I will post things about it that people need to know. I just posted a bunch of stuff about the Medicaid. Gabe Evans is a state rep from the Thornton area. It was a very tightly run seat. He barely won. A couple hundred votes was all. And he voted yes on the bill last night. And so we just published a press release from Progress Now that Gabe Evans, sold out Coloradoans to Trump. So we will publish opinion pieces. Steve Nelson just published the piece on it today, but our main focus is our community and how to make sure that our community is being enforced. So, local stories, we sued the city of Boulder police because they shot a woman 9 times who was homeless and had mental health issues. And she was walking around sort of like this with a toy gun. And unfortunately, we have a lot of stigmas around people with mental health issues being violent. And when it's like less than 15% are, it might even be 10%. I
And
can't remember.
I've fallen
Yeah.
into that trap before because when there's a mass shooting or something like that, I was like, I was some crazy guy. And then I've heard people talk and say, hey, don't put it on. It's a crazy guy because you're putting a stick. And I've fallen into that trap. It's an easy one to fall into, but I do get that argument. It makes sense.
Somebody
Um,
who's homeless and mentally ill looks frightening to us,
yeah.
but um so they shot this woman 9 times, and we requested the body cam. So Colorado passed the Police Accountability Act in 2020, and it requires the officers to wear body cams at all times, and that they have to provide, upon request, if they name the Police Accountability Act, they have to provide the videos for free. So Boulder wanted to charge us $3,000. And so we had the lawyer and we took it to court and we won. The judge said no, they shouldn't have tried to charge us. And we got the videos and we published our story on what the police did. So now Boulder is appealing it. And if they're trying to say that CORA, I don't know if you know what CORA is, the Open Records Act. So there's a National Open Records Act. I don't know how long we'll have that for.
Hmm.
But that's how I'm coping, by the way. I'm just laughing.
Both
Um,
of you told me that
So
to start with.
I
Both of
wanted
you
to,
said, "Oh, we're just gonna laugh through this whole administration." So,
well, and
um,
I want to clarify
it's
because I'm
not
not,
quite like that. Mine's a trauma response, I think.
so, and Siobhan, I think we're handling this the same way because the first Trump term, I will openly admit my friends were probably very annoyed with me. I was that guy that every time I was around, I was like, "Did you guys see? Everything was an emergency. Look what Trump
Right.
did." And like, I have a daughter now that's 10 years old. Like, I can't be skitzing out all day long about what Trump did. Like, I just can't. It won't be good for my mental health. I don't think I can
Right.
survive another 4 years doing that. So as soon as Trump got elected, I told Docs, I was like, I can't give that same energy. Like I'm gonna pay attention and I'll probably be upset, but I can't walk around stressed and upset all day every day. Like it's not good for me, and I'm not gonna do it again. Trying to pay attention to the big things he does and not the nine other every day that he does.
I'm throwing myself into, what can we do as a community? One of the most radical things you can do, you talk about the BDS movement, shop local. I made this list of decorporatize your groceries, and I made a list of independent grocers. There's not very many. Carnicerias, there's a lot of those. Asian markets, meat markets, seafood markets, markets. It's this huge list. And if people just stop driving to Walmart, King Supers, and pay attention to the stores along the way, it's not that much difficulty to shop locally. But it also, you want to do BDS, shop locally all the time. It's one big giant BDS, and so like we got to stop giving them money,
yeah,
and don't get me wrong, there's no doubt I am concerned about what is happening to America, and I am very concerned that we're literally in a it's a corporate coup for one. That's quite obvious, but it's fascists, and it's not saying that with hyperbole.
Well,
They
Siobhan,
really are.
I bet you've read "Steal This Book."
I have not.
Oh my gosh, I just listened to it on audiobook for the second time. And like in the first, I don't know, couple paragraphs of the book, he says like if you're not stealing from giant corporations, you're doing a disservice to the country.
What did you see somebody steal food? No, you didn't. Um,
Yeah.
exactly. So we don't. I mean, we are in trouble in America. There is no doubt about it. Um, I think for me that I can't live in fear. I've already spent my time there. You asked, I know what you would ask me. How come the last 5 years were so hard? Well, I went into the pandemic with a magazine that I ended up shuttering that cost me a lot of money, and then the pandemic was brutal. I mean, I lost $65,000 in 2020.
good
I
Lord.
lived off of bad loans, so it but I've worked through a lot of that. Things are a little bit better. But I just don't have time for fear or hope. Both
Well,
are folly.
well,
Hope is folly. It's a waste of time.
that's
Yeah.
exactly what I was about to say. It's a waste of time and it's not getting anything done. And I've always been kind of the guy that's like, hey, if you're going to complain about something, present me with another option of how you would do it. Don't just complain. Give me another idea. And that's where I learned 2016 through 20, I was just whining and complaining the whole time and not doing anything that actually made an impact. I love what you're talking about your list about shopping local that you published. Like, that's awesome. That's getting something done. This time around, really my whole goal with starting this with docs was like, let's try to educate some people. If five people watch this and learn some things, or maybe see a different point of view from what they normally see, whether it's on the news or at home or with friends, like awesome. If I can hit five people every time we record, that's what I'm going for. But to just running around mass hysteria, like it's getting nothing
Well,
done.
that's what they want too, because
Hmm.
all of these horrible things they are doing, and they are horrible, they are horrible. But those are the distractions to the tear down of our government, and the takeover by a bunch of corporate bros.
Oh yeah, that's
Yeah.
what I tell docs every time. He'll be like, "Oh, this is terrible," and I'm like, "Don't get upset. That's just what they want." Like 8 out of 10 things they're doing is to get a reaction out of the left or to get a reaction out of
To
everybody that's on their
distract
side.
us.
Yeah.
To distract. I mean, they're doing wrong things. Don't get me wrong. Don't let's not mistake that they are doing wrong things. These are horrible things they are doing. They are illegal. They
Well,
are immoral. They are unethical, and they're unconscionable.
well,
Um,
what's crazy is some of the things that we see, and like there's a couple that I pointed out immediately. I mean, like, that's a distraction. Like he's just trying to keep us looking over there while he does something evil on the other side. But then a couple of them have turned out like the whole U.S. is going to just take Gaza thing. Like I'm starting to think that's not a distraction. As soon as he said that, I was like, this is a distraction. This is not going to happen. And the further we get into it, I'm like, oh wow. Like I honestly think that I think he's serious about some of these. That
there's
it's
an
worrying.
author out of Boulder, a professor that wrote a book about Trump and golf. It's a pretty famous book. I don't remember the name. And he's got a famous quote in there from Trump who talks about, I cheat on golf, I cheat on my wives. What did you think I would cheat on my tax? I cheat on my taxes, I cheat on my wives. Did you not think I would cheat on my golf? And the basic moral is when somebody tells you where they are, believe them. And I see these right wingers online right now, and he's just cutting waste. Okay, for something that's going to disabled and low income people who wouldn't be low income if they were paid a living wage, but that's a whole another part of this scheme. And really what they want to do, I mean, Trump said the other day the 1890s were the best time in America.
The
Hmm.
Gilded Age with the robber
That's
barons.
what he
That's yeah.
wants is robber barons. What I'm focusing on is strength and resilience. It does me no good to hope. Yeah, I'm concerned, don't get me wrong. And there's moments where I feel that fear, but I'm not living in it. If I die fighting evil, okay, but I'm coming up swinging. So it's not just the education that I'm doing. I'm publishing a lot about, I'm going to be publishing my next story is how can you get activated? How to get activated. And I'm going to have a list of groups that people can get involved with. I had so many people after he was elected because they know I'm very active and I know, I mean, a lot of groups and I'll admit it, I'm an activist, you betcha. And what I activate for? Justice, peace, equality, crazy stuff like that.
All those
So,
crazy
huh?
hippie ideas, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But strength and resilience. And first we have to stay connected. We need each other more than ever. And we need to stay together. And isolating in curled up on a ball on my couch is not going to help me function through this. And so I'm focused on local, 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 connecting with community and providing the information that people need. And I haven't made it down to Denver yet for any of the protests, but probably going to go because I've been to other ones. Right
Well,
now, I'm doing my job getting the information out there. So we're not focusing on every Trump story. We're focusing on what you can do.
I love that. And luckily, if you're trying to activate people, I feel like you have the best helper possible in the Oval Office because he has a way of activating people like nobody else. And that's what I've gone back and forth where I'm like, okay, he's got 2 years, and then Democrats will take the midterms. And then for a couple weeks there, I was like, I don't feel confident in that anymore. But as things are starting to play out now, I'm feeling a little bit better about it. And it's kind of one of
I'm
those.
concerned we're going to have an election.
That's if they start changing voting laws, which it looks like they very easily could head in that direction. That's extremely worrying. Um, I don't know.
Well,
I
they've already 30 states have passed voter restrictive laws, suppression laws since 2020.
Good Lord. All
Yep.
in the name of stopping fraud in the election. That's Trump and the Republicans right now love the word fraud, but they never use it in the right way. Like you were talking about the waste, fraud, and abuse they're finding. Most of the waste, fraud, and abuse they're finding is just money that's been appropriated by Congress that's going to something they don't like, and they're referring to that as fraud or waste. And it's like, no, it's going. I get it that it's going. The trans therapy in Indonesia or something like that, and Republicans think there's no reason we should be spending our money on that. If they feel that way, pass a budget that doesn't have that in it. But to just cut it, I've gone into a whole spiel about the Impound Control Act of 1974. Like he's violating that, and he's just going to decide that I don't care what the Congress passes. If I don't like it, I'm not going to pay for it. Which
Well, a lot of their garbage, I mean, they're the ultimate gaslighters. If you've ever been in an abusive relationship, what do? Everything they accuse you of, they're doing.
Mhm.
Stealing the election, fraud. I mean,
That's
he's a grifter. He's a complete grifter. But what's funny, all these whines and all these pointing the fingers at these trans people and wherever, but the reality is they were all upset about, so science gets, I think, 1.5% of the budget. And there was a study that was using alcoholic rats, wolf urine soaked alcoholic rats. And at the surface, you're like, oh my God, that's a waste of money. So turns out it's really a study to help people with PTSD who fall into alcoholism and to see if they can find a treatment to help them when, to help them with the PTSD and the alcoholism. So the sci-fi guy,
Bill
Aaron,
Nye.
no, Aaron,
I don't know, a sci-fi guy.
The SciShow brothers, Hank and I can't think of his last name. He did an episode on it. So
And is this so? If this works, is this going to involve us at some point spraying veterans with wolf urine or what?
probably not.
Okay, I was gonna say I don't want to do that. Those people served our country. I don't want to do that to them.
But the
Yeah, I feel
point
like
is, they're
there's a lot
making
of stuff out there that they're doing that doesn't, that looks like something else, but it's like, oh, this is for a bigger cause, you know?
right. And it's
When
propaganda that they're just taking what they want to cull from it, and then wolf-soaked rats. What a waste of money.
See, I'll bet you can take any like scientific experiment and find a way to phrase it and be like, oh, look at this dumb experiment. But no, I mean it's so yeah. It's the good news is they're going to cut funding to that, so we don't have to worry about them talking about it anymore. Because something tells me we're not funding that. I haven't checked yet, but I'm going to say we're.
Yeah,
By the way, real quick, I
right.
don't know if you guys saw a judge had ordered the Trump administration that they had till midnight tonight to resume spending on certain USAID stuff. And just before we started recording, Chief Justice John Roberts on the Supreme Court basically put a stay on that. Basically, the deadline is now moved. He doesn't have to pay that by midnight tonight, and I think he said he wants to see some kind of written arguments by Friday. So just throwing that little update
Mm.
on there. We almost got some of that the USAID back, but not happening tonight.
I
Mm.
went back east over the weekend, and I had a layover in Chicago, and I had time to go to the bar for a drink because it was a long layover. And I'm sitting at the bar, and I'm having my glass of wine, and this guy's sitting next to me, and I don't know how. I mean, I talk to everybody, so that's probably how. But he ended up talking about Doge and how cool he thought it was and how great it was. And I go, could you repeat that? Am I hearing you correctly? And he goes, yeah. So I proceeded to let him know that overall, the rest of the world thinks that Doge and Musk are a piece of shit. And he didn't think that was funny. And he goes, well, I work my ass off. And I go, well, I work my ass off too, but I don't justify doing evil for it. And then I was talking on the phone to the person I just visited and telling him about this Doge guy. And this dude's over listening, and I can see him laughing. And I go, oh, you got opinion on that? And he goes, well, I'm Canadian. I go, so what do you think? And he goes, oh, America's going to be fine. It's fine. And just hearing, it was just kind of shocking because most of my friends are educated, they're informed, they're literate when it comes to news. And I'm surrounded with people who are paying attention. And it was just really interesting to see the cognitive dissonance from everyday people. And I don't know that that's the majority, but there's enough of them that they're getting away with it
So
right now.
It's a combination, in my opinion, of people that are in. I wish I could find a better way to explain this because I don't want to call people ignorant, but they're ignorant on politics or what's going on in the world. They don't pay attention to it. If they paid attention, they'd understand it. They just don't pay attention. But I've seen so many things recently where the more news a person intakes throughout the course of a day or a week or whatever, the more likely they are to have kind of more left-leaning views. The people that don't really pay attention to the news tend to be Republicans. And then you tack that on with, and it's tribalism and cognitive dissonance, and I think those are kind of to me the same. But people they want to hear what they already believe, and if you try to tell them something that doesn't jive with what they already believe, they get real defensive real quick. And I spent a couple years. I used to talk to docs about this. My whole thing was, how do I approach it in a way that the guard's going to go down and they're going to be willing to hear what I have to say? And I've yet to figure that out. It's not happening.
Maybe 15 years ago we could have done some of that,
Yeah.
but it's gone now. My
I
dad
just
used
started
to
yelling
say,
at people.
yeah, my dad, I just ask him questions. So
Yeah.
can you tell me exactly what the waste is in this bill that they're cutting? Can you name that? And can you tell me how turning around and giving that money in tax breaks to billionaires is cutting waste? And they don't answer those questions. You just ask them hard questions and they don't answer. But my dad used to say people are married to their beliefs. And it's not that people that are consume more news or more educated that just makes you left. It has to do with when you are informed and studying. None of these people even know what the social contract is. They don't know what a social contract is. They don't know who the contractarian philosophers are. They don't know that that's how our Constitution was based on, right? They don't know these principles. And so, yeah, if it goes against their belief, I think for some, they are ill-informed. And then for some, it's greed. I'm
Yeah,
going to get
and
pie too. We
that
have two choices. We can either be what kind of people we're going to be. Screw it. It's all screwed up. It's all messed up. I'm just going to get mine, or I want to change.
well,
Those
this
There was
are
this
kind of the
this.
two choices.
real quick, the scary part is, as far as the social contract goes, one of the billionaires hanging around with Trump, and I think it might have been Sam Altman, but one of them, that was part of his thing with all the money they're pumping into AI now. And he basically said, hey, we're going to have to rewrite the social contract because that's, the one we've had is not the one of the future with AI and, probably AI taking over most of our jobs. And so it's scary that there's a
The
whole new
social
world just ahead.
contract is a principle. It's the idea is that we're a government nation of laws, right? Now I sound like a liberal, but the idea is that, to live in a society with people, we have agreed upon rules that we don't murder each other, rape each other, cause harm to each other. That's the social contract
Yeah.
in a nutshell.
And
And
part of it is also helping those that have fallen on hard times and whatnot. That's been one of the backbones of it, and I think that we're getting ready to
no, that
kick that
came
to the curb.
along in the 1930s with that wasn't part of
The
the
New Deal.
founding of the nation. That's not what the contractarians wrote about with the social contract. That's probably an extension. They probably used the social contract as an argument for Social Security and Medicaid, and because we had to convince the nation, after the crash, that we should have safety nets. But the difference between then and now, we have the 1890s, the robber barons, and then of course that kind of greed is going to crash the economy. We will see a crash in America. I guarantee you. I would put money on it. We will see a crash.
I fear that
And
it's coming sooner than anybody's thinking. I'm
yeah,
very very worried about it right now.
I'm worried too. And I'm just gonna keep going. Um, but what were we saying? I
Social
lost,
contract.
yeah, but social contract, but we what happened after the crash was, the progressives, let's call them progressives, they happen to be Democrats at the time, were waiting in the wings with the right message. And he won 4 elections.
Yeah.
That good, people liked that good, and because of that, for the next 50 years, it was the prime of America's history. It was truly, if you were white, they were uplifting the middle class, but it was truly the most prosperous economic healthiest time in America, unless you were a minority. We were still fighting for those rights, but those were even making changes. But from the 1940s to the 1980s until deregulation came along,
Mm.
we had antitrust laws, like they were tight, and corporations' only purpose wasn't just to serve the shareholder. I think it was Jack Welch, right, that got that changed in the 80s. It used to be they were proud of their pensions and their long-term employees.
Yeah.
And we were a healthier nation. And a bunch of
Unions.
billionaires convinced a bunch of people through Fox News and talk radio that's bad.
That's the I said earlier we got to give them credit for what they've done. To me, that's the most impressive thing is they've managed to convince a bunch of lower or lower middle class people to get on the same message as the billionaires. And I witnessed some of our buddies from high school were like, yeah, we got to let these people get these people to stop freeloading off of us. And I'm sitting here going, dude, you're a free like you've been on unemployment more than you haven't in the past 10 years. Like, I'm not hating on you for it, but when you're sitting here getting mad about the freeloaders, anyhow, real
I had
quick,
a woman tell me one time, all those people on food stamps and everything and public aid are freeloaders. And she goes, I saw them because I had to collect for a little while and I would sit in the room and I could tell they all were freeloaders. And I'm like, oh, but you were the only one there that was
yeah,
not.
no, it's always everybody else. Real quick, you made a comment about coming out of the crash. The progressives were waiting in the wings with the right message. I gotta tell you, I'm worried right now. I
Mhm.
haven't seen anything on the left where Jon Stewart, Bill Burr, and Bernie are the only
Yep.
three
And
that are.
AOC,
And
one spot, the
maybe
spot.
I'm missing it, and tell me if I'm missing it. But I was just telling Docs last night, like, where's AOC? Like, I thought when Trump won, I thought this is her moment to step out onto the stage, and we'd be
Oh,
seeing a lot of her. And maybe I'm not watching the right things, but I haven't seen AOC out like Bernie's been. I mean, that's where I expected to
she's
see her.
out. I
Okay, I'm
follow her. She's out. She's out. It's just that, we right now we have Republican light and then we have fascists.
we don't have much Republican light left, not in elected positions.
No, I'm talking about the Democrats.
Okay, I'm with you on that. So the Hakeem Jeffries, which Hakeem. So
Nancy's got to go. I know she's retired, but Nancy, you're still pulling the strings, and that's why AOC didn't get her chair.
yep.
Hmm.
And I read a thing the other day, and whoever the minority leader or speaker of the House is, their main job is to fundraise, and apparently Hakeem has those connections with corporations. So I get it, but that's a separate role. Let him be that guy, but show me a face of the House Dems right now, or of the Democratic Party in general. It can't. Bernie's doing a great job, and I really like Bernie's message. He's going to be 83 or 84 by the next election. It's not going to be him. We need to figure out who it's going to be and get on it kind of quick. And I'm very worried because the couple that have tried to step up and do it, they just don't have that natural
Who's
charisma.
the oldest person on the Democrat side? I'm sure that's who the Democrats will put up.
Bernie
I
then,
think it's
which
Bernie.
Yeah, they won't put him up. The
yeah,
problem with the Dems is that corporate money.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, getting corporate money out of politics is that's the answer if you want true democracy, but in
what
our system. But where we're at now, I mean, I don't know if I'll be alive when we see the healing from all of this, because there will be healing. Progress always moves forward
Yeah. Do you think
slowly,
we can fight this?
glacially. Huh?
Do you think we can just fight? Do you think we can fight this? And like if we get on this as progressives, can we stop what's going on, or is this train just going to keep on rolling?
not till the
I
midterms.
don't know that I can believe giving up is an answer. That's how Yellowstone made it to 25 years old. So you're probably asking the wrong person, because I don't ever give up if I want something. And so I think that I'll die trying.
So
I'll say this.
besides shopping locally, how do we start to fight the system, the powers that
Well,
be?
down in Denver, there's a meeting every Monday has over 1,000 people show up every week. Get involved with the groups that are organizing, get involved. There has to be the problem with the left. And part of the problem, there's a term between the liberal and the leftist, right? And I know all the podcasts or the streamers all use that term a lot. And it does help define the difference between a Democrat and a progressive. But I get a little tired of the roles. What's this? A song, I'm a better anarchist than you. And that's the problem with the left. We fight amongst each other. Progressive, you know. What we're dealing with is not a populist ideology. We're dealing with fascism. It's straight out of Hitler's playbook. And I know he who says that name first loses, but that's a fact. You know,
There's
what we're witnessing in Gaza is just as insane.
I made a pledge with myself right when Trump got elected, and I said, okay, I'm not going to do the Trump Russia thing, and I'm not going to do the Hitler Nazi thing. Like, I'm going to try to not do that. He's making it really hard on me. Like, I so don't want to use, I don't want to say fascist, and I don't want to say Nazi
I
Germany.
know.
And with everything that's happening, I'm just like, oh, like he wants me to say it. I truly, and with the Sig Heils we've seen at a couple different conventions, like they're making it hard on me. I'm going to back up real quick, Doc. You were saying, do we give up? Do we fight? She said it earlier, but the number one thing right now is activating people, activating voters for the midterms. If it's someone who's going to vote, make sure they're going to vote. If it's someone who's never voted before, get them to vote. For the next
Yeah.
we got 19, 20 months left of Republican rule of the House. Like, we can't do anything to stop what's going to happen over these next almost 2 years. But when the midterms hit, that's the chance. If they don't take back the House at the midterms,
No, I
then
called Bennett and Hickenlooper today
okay.
because I'm going to do all the angles. And I said, we don't really want to hear about how you're compromising. What we want to hear is how you're going to vote and how you're going to go round up 9 other Republicans to vote against this bill. That's what we want to hear about. I don't want to hear how you're compromising. And so, are we going to get all 45 Dems in the Senate to vote no? Then they got to get 9 other people to vote no as well.
It's going to be
So
rough.
was this a
Which of
voicemail?
the senators which of the Republican senators might still have somewhat of a conscience left? This
There's
is the
two.
thing we're not dealing with. You talk about mental health. We talk about that. I used to joke about uber wealth disorder. If you've ever been broke, and I have been, and I've been down on my luck broke, it changes you. It changes how you act. It changes how you feel. It changes how you think, how you carry yourself. It changes you when you are stressed about money all the time. Well, it's the other end of the spectrum. When you have that much money, you're diseased. When you have so much and you just need more, you have more than you could spend in 100 lifetimes.
Do you
And
think is
something diseased about you. There's a sickness. It's a sickness.
is it just a lack of empathy? Like, 'cause that's the kind of the way I would phrase it. People that have always had money and never been poor seem to have zero empathy for anybody else. Whereas if you've been there before, it's really easy to look at someone who's down on their luck and say, I remember how that was. You're likely
Part of the
to,
propaganda machine, and it really started being pushed in the 90s, was Ayn Rand. I remember, so I've been in a political group for a lot of years, and really in the 2000s, when Obama, like Ayn Rand got really big in the 2000s among, it used to be for teenage boys who were prepubescent and didn't understand the world. And, Ayn Rand's philosophy, and no university in the world recognizes it as a philosophy. It's a fiction book, objectivism. But the whole principle of it is what's mine is good for me. If it's good for me, it's good for me. Screw everybody else. And that's what they've been. It's, I think there's been so much propaganda funneled. I mean, Ronald Reagan is the one who made the word liberal a dirty word. And it's brilliant propaganda for an uneducated population or uninformed. Let's call it uninformed. And then when you take, Frank Zappa said, after the 60s revolutions, they took civics out of high school.
So, and talking about Ayn Rand, like there's certain times where I'll try to have a talk with somebody, and then they'll say one or two things where I realize that I'm just not. And when somebody brings him up, or what is the quote from the book?
Her, her,
Sorry.
Russian, yeah.
What is the quote from the book? Who is John Galt? Or
Yeah, yeah.
if I hear that, I'm almost immediately I'm like, all right, I know that you probably only read that, and that's what you're basing everything off of, and I'm just gonna turn around and walk away now. Have a good day.
Well, the
Like that.
libertarians are big on Ayn Rand. They think capitalism is democracy.
Oh, scary.
They free market is actually democracy, and it's just people unregulated. People go, the market will correct it. Sure, okay, I make a crappy car that blows up when you drive it,
Mhm.
and how long will it take before that car gets out of the market from just the consumers? You have to have regulations. They are really important
Yeah.
No, and
at
that's
business.
here in Oklahoma. We're a pretty red state.
Yeah.
Uh, they were talking. This was right when I moved up here, but they were trying to really scale back what the health inspectors and the health department does.
Mhm.
And for the life of me, I couldn't figure it out why. And I asked somebody one time, and so he said, that's what free market capitalism is all about. If people are getting sick and getting sick and hospitalized or dying at a certain restaurant, people will stop going, and that
Right.
restaurant will close down, and that's how the free market works. And it's like, okay, how many people have to die before
Right.
we hit that point? Like, I don't like this idea.
It's a fantasy. I mean, here's the thing about the market. It didn't grow in the wild and we went out and tamed it. It's all man-made. There's no such thing as a free market. That's a myth. That's a lie. That's propaganda. It's all human made. It's not something that we caught off of tree and small and mashed it and made wine out of it. It's man-made, human-made.
I thought on the eighth day Jesus made capitalism. Is that not right?
That's yeah, maybe so.
Okay. So
I have a joke or line, and it's not. It's kind of you have to think about it. It's much more layered. 100% I'd be a socialist, except for the capitalists have the guns and the money.
it's a joke and it's some truth.
It's
Yeah.
100% true.
Yeah. It's gonna be
I
fun.
don't know if I'd be socialist. We don't know. I know that what we're doing ain't working. And what's that old saying for an addict? Keep doing the same thing over and expecting different results. What we're doing is clearly not working. People are suffering. It's harming society. I mean, do no harm. Do as much harm as you can. Is that the motto?
That
I
seems like
get
it.
mine. It's a sickness.
Yeah, I don't see what scares me is I don't see any way of coming out of this current trajectory without a crash of some kind. I feel like we got to hit rock bottom as a nation, and that's the only way we're going to bounce out of this. I wish that wasn't the case, but I'm kind of locked in on that right now.
I put a post up because Trump is wanting to sell immigration to
Oh yeah.
wealthy people, right? And it's the end of America as we know it. It's the end of America as we know it. But one thing I guess, progress always moves forward. It always moves forward. Slowly, slowly, glacially, slowly, but it always moves forward. Will we be alive when it gets better? I mean, it took 4 years after 1929. So maybe it's going to cause a lot of pain and damage. It's going to cause a lot of destruction. And maybe they burn it all down for us. My job's done now. I don't have to worry about burning it down anymore. You just did.
I,
Now
I
we
think
can.
I think that's what Doge is trying to do right now is just burn down the government. It seems to be their goal.
The
Yeah.
ketamine addict, right? Ketamine.
Allegedly, we don't want to get sued.
Allegedly, okay, he's an
Allegedly,
alleged drug user.
yes.
And like that's that he's an example of just going mad with power. Just like
Yeah.
mad.
What
Like there's no point to what he's doing other than it gets his rocks off. What kind of sickness is that
No, he's just protecting himself. It looks like he's protecting himself on all fronts.
well
He's
he
just getting
yeah.
rid of all these organizations that are trying to go after him in certain aspects of his businesses, and then he's just enriching himself by giving himself more contracts with the government.
My
Which is
my I hang on to one piece of hope, and this is why hope is folly. We get to see them all in the poorhouse.
Oh, you're more optimistic than me. I think that America will come out of this in shambles, and the
Mhm.
billionaires will be just fine. I hope
Yeah,
I'm
well, you're
wrong.
right, probably, but this
Yep.
is this is why we don't hang on to hope and we hang on to strength and resilience.
Yeah. Well,
Hope
and
gives us ideas like that.
the thing you said with the power, like that's what scares me is I feel like you can tell with certain people who's just there for the power. They want more of it. And I feel like there's a lot of people Trump is placing in high positions right now that you can tell they're that kind of person. Just at the FBI,
all of them.
Dan Bongino and Cash Patel, I look at that and I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
that's scary right there.
Well,
Um,
what is that meme that's going around? I always knew the rich and powerful would control the world. I just never knew they would all be such losers. I mean, none of them they're classless.
they
They're
are.
absolutely trash when it comes to their class. They have no class. They have all that money and they just have lips and faces and everything is just There's no they're ignorant, they're classless. They're smart enough to be con men.
Yep. Well, the worst part is they have no empathy.
Yeah, they've lost their consciousness.
On real
Like
quick, you
we're
said something about the plastic faces. Bill Burr on his podcast called Elon a laminate faced something. I can't remember what it was. I got such a kick out of it. I laughed so hard about that. So yeah, that's my
Yeah,
new Elon
they all
nickname.
are way overdone. So that right there is your first, like, there it's just it's there's no substance to it. I mean, so of course they're clinging to power and wealth because they're hollow inside. They really, really are. They're hollow. But Henry Kissinger died at 100, so they may never get theirs.
That's what sucks is I believe in karma and I was always like, Donald Trump's gonna get what's coming to him. And the more that this goes on, I'm like, no, he's gonna die thinking that he did a great job. Like it'll be
Well,
later in the history books after he's dead. We'll talk about what really happened, but he's gonna go out a king in his mind, and that's
one thing that we have, there is a lot more of us than them.
the problem is the a lot more of us don't show up to vote. And that's why I said that's what we got to focus on for the next year and a
Okay,
half is
so
activating people.
33% didn't vote. 33% voted for Trump, and essentially 33% voted for 2 million difference, right? He didn't get more votes. Then 2016, he had 116,000 votes or 112,000 votes. He had 76 in 2020 and 79 in 2024. The difference that's happened is 30 states have passed voter suppression laws since 2020. 12 of them extremely restrictive. To vote in Ohio, you have to have 3 forms of ID. You have to bring your electric bill.
And the thing is
wow.
that they make that hassle so that certain people just go, I don't want to look for all that stuff, so I'm not going to mess with it. I just won't vote. And that's a win. And Republicans have said it on the record, like if everybody in this country voted, they'd never win another election.
That's
Like
right. They know that. If
they
everybody in this country, there's more progressives than there are them.
they don't hide it at all. They've been
They're
open
not
about that.
anymore. They didn't used to.
Yeah.
They used to hide it. Now they don't. So
Hmm.
I don't know. I don't know what's gonna come. I keep getting up every day and going out there and doing the work. And I guess, we all end up in the poorhouse on the bread line. That's gonna suck.
Hmm.
I'll have 20 people living in my house, so I don't lose it.
Okay. I might need to bring my family to Colorado. So 23, can you handle that?
Yeah. Well, I do have several trans people that work and are in my life, and I decided probably Shavonne's house will become the Anne Frank's hiding spot, I guess, if that comes down to it. But
That's
I'll just
like
I'll rent out every nook and cranny in my house. I'm hanging on to this fucking house. Sorry, I didn't
How
know if
many
you could
couches can you put
swearing.
up?
Huh?
How
We'll
many
have to,
couches can you fit in your house?
yeah. Um, the other thing I've decided, if it comes down to it, and everybody's got their guns, and we have to kill our neighbor and kill his dog and eat his dog to survive, and we're gonna go out, we're gonna have civil war. I'm taking all my gems and I'm going down to Colfax,
I like it. Good plan.
and I'm coming back and I'm locking myself in and I'm partying it down until they're at the door. And then when they're at the door, have one last dose for the farewell.
All
I'm
right.
not living through eating my neighbor's dog.
Yeah.
If they're
It,
zombies, they can have me.
what's really sad is like part of me, my instinct when you say all that is like, it's not going to get that bad. But like, there's a reality side of my brain that's like, no, like it could get that bad. Like it really could. Like I'd like to pretend it's not gonna, but I'm gonna hope we bottom out without hitting that point.
We can have a civil war.
Yeah. What's sad? What's sad is
Question is, which people with guns and badges and uniforms will not stand with him? Because there are honorable people. Our former police chief, real deal, LGBTQ, military. She was a good one. She was one of the best cops I've ever met. And I don't say that. You don't hear that out of Shavonne's mouth. And she believed in doing the right things. I mean, Erie, they give you a warning first when they pull you over. Just it's a different form of she brought a different, and I think about her. Would she say no? He's firing all the generals that would say no.
And that's what I was gonna say. It's gonna have to be the local, police that might be the ones to save the day. Because as
Yeah,
far as the as far as
maybe
the nat,
us.
I was gonna say the national military goes, anyone that might be that person is getting removed right now. So yeah,
Yeah,
it's
but
gonna
you
be
got to think all those good ones have people under them that look up to them who were mentored by them, and they're seeing their mentors being fired for no reason at all, and I think it's probably going to drive a little bit of wedge between the military and Trump.
the problem is what Trump wants in that case is for them to get discouraged and leave, so that all
He
he's
wants to
left with.
replace him with his January 6th militia.
Yep.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that's
They're
that we
building a
got.
militia. They're building a militia.
We
They're
kind of
building a militia.
They are, and we have to hope that the ones you're talking about, docs, that they just kind of bite their tongue and hang out in there for a time that they might be needed. Because if they just
Yeah,
say, "Ah, screw this, I'm out of here," yeah, now we're in trouble. So,
yeah.
and it'd be really tempting to just say, "I'm done. Like I got one more year left on this tour, and I'm out, and I'm not coming back." And that would be bad for us if they do that. But I could see how tempting that would be.
Well,
Hmm.
I don't have a gun and I don't want one, and I'm probably not going to go buy one. I don't need one. There are some in my house, but I don't want one. They forget that liberals have guns too.
Yeah. Hope you
What's
have
sad
fun.
is I years ago I bought an AR and I've got guns, but I'm not a gun guy normally. But everybody I knew had an AR. Like every guy, and I lived in Texas at the time, and I just started to realize that if the shit does hit the fan, I'm outgunned. I got a hunting rifle. Like, and everybody I know has an AR. So I bought one that I think I've fired it twice in my life, and it's just in the safe. And it's the only reason I have it is because I know if it does hit the fan, most everybody out there's got an AR. I don't want to be
Shoot
overmatched.
me. If that's what it comes to, shoot me. Put me out of my misery.
Ah,
I
let's
don't
not
want,
do
I'm
that.
not playing. But until that time, there's a journalist here in Denver called, his name is Jeff Fard, and he's been around a long time. He's one of the prominent Black journalists. He only airs on Facebook. He's got a huge following. Anybody who's elected follows Jeff if they live in Denver. And he's brilliant. He's absolutely brilliant. I featured him in the magazine a few times, but he likes to say, come up swinging. So I've adopted his, I'm adding it, come up swinging. I will come up swinging, but I'm not, if you're going to come at me with your AR, shoot me.
Hmm.
You win.
So, real quick, and on Good Journalist, you guys have a guy there. I think he's out of Denver, a local news guy named Kyle. Was it Kyle Clark, maybe?
Yeah, he's on Channel 9 News.
I follow him on Twitter, and I very much enjoy that guy. I know more about what's going on in Denver than I should because I follow him, and I wish we had more local news guys like that. That's all I'm going to say. So, you guys be appreciative of what you got up
I
there.
am happy. I was pretty disappointed with the Kaza coverage, but that was kind of a mandate. But he's speaking up right now.
I like him. So, all right,
I was
Docs,
afraid he would kiss the ring.
we're at the 5 minute warning. Docs, you got anything else you got to end on?
I think we covered a lot of it. Yeah, I'm
Awesome.
good.
Siobhan,
Let's-
it was awesome to have you on. And if you ever want to come back on and talk, this was awesome. And I hope we do it
All
again.
right. Well,
If
thanks.
not, when I come
That's
see
fun.
Docs, I'm gonna make Docs take me to you also so I can buy you a coffee or a drink or
We'll
something.
have to go out to eat. We do have some trade. Send me the YouTube link and I'll promote it.
Awesome.
Sweet.
And you guys have to promote your channel.
We're gonna figure that out. It's one of those where we keep looking at it. It's like we're not getting any growth in our viewers. Oh yeah, we're also not telling anybody about it at
No,
all. So
yeah, you have to promote it.
yeah, we'll
Figure
we'll
it
get
out.
on that eventually.
Yeah.
So
Facebook is a good place to start. Your Instagram, Blue Sky. You
We,
just
got
we
it.
we actually
put a
promote on
post
Blue
up.
Sky.
Yeah, Blue
We're
Sky is
actually
the only
promoting
place
on Blue
we're
Sky.
on. So we'll keep
All
going on
right.
that.
All
So
right. Yeah, I'm so
awesome.
burned out on social media, but I'm still on my Facebook because you know what? There's a lot of community there, and I put a post up, stuck with Zuck. Stuck with Zuck.
Nice. I'm gonna find you again on Facebook, and this time
All
I'll
right.
stalk you and then friend you. So
All right. Thank you
awesome.
guys.
Pleasure.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks, Siobhan.
Thank you.
Bye.